He has got a ton of fight in him, man.
Keep lifting. Oh, what a stud! What a great fish.
And the hook popped right out.
It did. Man. Awesome, Bruce. Awesome. Hey, Captain Rick Murphy here. And guys, I thought it'd be really cool to talk to you about snook fishing and how you might need to adjust your fishing over the next 12 months because of the time of year and the changes that we're gonna have after getting through the summer. Now in the fall, we have typically the water starts to cool off, and this has a tendency to really trigger the big snook to bite till it gets to a certain cold temperature, and then their metabolism slows down and then they go into the survival mode. But until that happens, know that in October, both on the East Coast and the West Coast, you're gonna have a mullet migration. And when that happens, remember that fish feed on silhouettes. So the silhouette that you would want to use would be something like this MirrOlure Top Dog. Chrome is a great color with a black back, green back, this blue back, a variety of other different colors work very well too. The reason why I like this topwater bait is it gives me a walk the dog style of presentation, but it also has the rattles in, which is like a call to action. It brings those fish out of some of those places that they might be hiding and actually calls them out. Now the other thing is that the silhouettes that they also eat are thread fins as well as pilchards. See, this looks a lot like a pilchard would look, or even some type of sardine. So keep in mind that these baits are what these fish are going to key in on. Now, as these baits disappear from the habitat, from the ecosystem, because they go offshore because the water gets cold, then you're going to want to switch over to something that looks like a shrimp. The shrimp in the bait and tackle stores are a great indication as to whether you should be fishing shrimp or still fishing some type of fin fish pattern. When you go into the store and you're seeing those big shrimp, know that they're catching big shrimp, and most likely the snook are going to feed on them. Now remember, as the cold fronts come through, the fish are going to have a tendency to go to deeper water when it's cold. But on days when it really starts to warm up, you'll find the fish will pull out of channels and climb up on very shallow water areas. And the reason why is, remember, water that's this deep will heat up a lot faster than it would if it was 4 or 5 feet deep, and vice versa. So everything in that particular mind thought is based on where we are on the cold front. If it's a hot day after the cold front has come through, or 2 or 3 days later, or leading into the next one, know that the fish are going to go shallow so that they can warm up. When that happens, then you can switch over to your Bass Assassin style of jerk baits. You can fish this weedless, or you can fish it with a jig head. If the water's tannic, this clear gold really is a great choice. I really like it. We can fish it with a 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce jig head, 1/4 ounce, depending on the depth. When you go to tie it on, you're going to want to tie it on with a loop knot. A uni knot works very, very well. And remember this about jigs, guys. The most important part of jig fishing is that when the jig hits the bottom, it makes a puff in the sand. And when you jerk it again, it's going to also make another puff, which indicates to a snook, a trout, or a redfish that there's some type of life bouncing through the hole. Very important that you have enough weight to get to the bottom. So make sure that you're feeling the jig hit the bottom. When you jerk it again, it comes out and makes another puff. Another bait that's very, very effective that time of year that you can fish very slow is a paddle style of bait like this particular sea shad. Now the sea shad works real well because, one, it's a little smaller, and when it's small, when the fishing's difficult, smaller seems to work better. The paddle tail baits also, keep in mind, it's very important that you understand that they have their own action and vibration. So with that being said, you only have to throw it out and reel it back slowly. And it's actually a great presentation. It's like a spoon. It also just is a steady vibration. They're not made to jerk. If you jerk them, what happens is the paddle tail vibrates and then it stops between twitches. So I'm going to tell you it's going to be a lot more effective if you throw it out and reel it back slowly, like you would use this Bass Assassin in the green hornet color. I love that little glitter because it looks like a little tail of a mullet going through the water, a little finger mullet. The other thing is, as the spring starts to heat up and we've gotten past those cold months, then you're going to want to switch back over. You'll have another mullet migration. You'll switch back over to either mullet or pilchards or thread fins. You can also use a pinfish on a jig head underneath a cork, whichever is your preference. Remember that whenever you are using a fin fish, that the circle hooks are going to work the best. This Trocar 5.0 really works well. It's slightly offset. I love the way it always seems to find the corner of a snook's mouth, or right here in the top if we're tarpon fishing. The other thing too is, if you're using mullet, whether it's a finger mullet or a big mullet, you got to make sure you have enough gap whenever you hook that fish in the top part of the lip in order for you to be able to actually hook the fish. So you might have to go up to a 9 or a 10.0 in order to make sure that that works. This Circle C Eagle Claw works very well. And I like the fact that it is silver, which matches the sides of the fish. We've all kind of switched over to black hooks, and that's might not necessarily be in the best interest. Again, tie that on with a loop knot. Now, when it comes to your tackle, one of the things that I like, if I'm up there fishing on the flats, I love using the Ricky Red rod by Okuma. It works real well in the medium heavy. I'm loading it up with the diamond braid 12-pound, and it casts a long way with the Okuma Helios SX. Works very well if I'm going to be fishing artificials. Now, if I'm going to be fishing live baits and I'm fishing for some really big fish, maybe fishing that big live mullet, then I'm going to go to the heavy Ricky Red rod, and I'm going to load it up with an Azor 55 or a 65, loaded up with 40 to 65 pound braid. Again, using some Mamoy or the Diamond fluorocarbon leader in 50, 40 if I have to clear water, and sometimes even 30 in order to get a bite. So remember, it all starts when you get the bite. So if you're fishing heavy leader and you're not getting a bite, you might have to go down in size. The good part about fishing a circle hook like these Eagle Claws is most likely the hook is going to be on the corner of the fish's mouth or out on the end of his nose. And what that allows you to do is you're not wearing and fraying on the leader. If the fish is not in any harm's way, remember this, guys, you don't need to wrench back on him. Let him run. Unless he's running for a dock or a tree limb that's submerged or an oyster bar, don't be wrenching back on him, because if he has swallowed it down deep, you're just helping him wear through the 30 or the 40 pound leader. So keep those things in mind. I think it's going to make a much better snook fisherman out of you. And for more of these tips, you simply just got to subscribe down below.